Welcome aboard, cruisers. This is Travel by David. I am your host. You guessed it, David. And today I'll be speaking with my longtime friends, Robbie and Dana, about their first dive into cruising with their recent voyage aboard the Princess Cruises Coral Princess, a 7-night Alaskan itinerary. Let's set sail. Robbie and Dana, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you guys on, and I know that we've talked earlier about your cruise, and I'm so excited for you guys. I loved hearing all about it, but I wanted our audience to listen to your perspective, because it's a first-time cruiser's perspective, and you went all out and went through the Alaska itinerary, which I think is fantastic. So I just wanted folks to get that. Hopefully this will help others who are looking to cruise or looking to go to Alaska get a good opinion about the cruise industry and about the Alaskan itinerary from someone who's not maybe seasoned with other cruise lines and other things. This way everyone can get a good perspective of what it's like for that. So let's dive in. You guys did a 7-night on the Coral Princess, correct?
Correct, yes.
So did you guys do any studying about the ship beforehand?
I watched one video just out of curiosity.
And what did you learn from that?
I learned that they built it to fit through the Panama Canal was the sole reason it was built. It's a smaller, as I've learned, it's a smaller ship than normal. It holds, I think, 2,000 passengers, and with the crew and all, it's like 3,000. So it's a medium-sized ship, to my understanding, still being a novice cruiser.
So when you guys were on the ship, did it feel overly large or overly packed, or do you think it was a good size?
I thought it was a good size. I don't have really anything to compare it to other than going into it. I'm not a big fan of crowds per se. I mean, I don't have a problem with people. I don't get anxiety. It's just I don't want to wait 45 minutes to get something to drink, or I just wasn't sure what to expect. That was probably one of my honestly one of the reasons I had never hey, let's go on a cruise, because I had envisioned just crowds of people in a space, and it wasn't like that. I think there was a handful of times that I waited 5 minutes for a drink because the weather was so nice and we were out on the deck, and I don't think they were prepared for the influx of people on the Alaska cruise, being out on the pool deck.
Being outside.
Yeah, because it had been rather rainy before our trip, so we were fortunate to have beautiful weather.
What about you, Dana? Do you feel the same?
I looked up what our cabin looked like, how it was kind of laid out, the square footage of it, what our balcony was. So I had a good idea of what that was. And then I looked at what level we were on the ship and a few things like that, but I didn't do a whole lot of research. Space-wise, it was the same thing. Probably embarkation and debarkation were the times that it was most crowded, or when we were returning from a few of our excursions. That's when it would get really crowded, but there wasn't much of a time that I felt overwhelmed. There was a lot of noise just because every bar you go to, they had singers and things like that. So you had to find, if you wanted quiet, you had to find a place for quiet, but it wasn't hard to find that.
I've not been to many bars that are quiet. Have you?
No. But because you're on a ship, you're walking by and there's a lot of places to sit along the sides of the ship to look out and things like that. And, you hear everything that's going on around you.
So what do you think maybe the vibe of the ship was? Was it relaxed? Was it calm? Was it friendly?
It was relaxed, definitely relaxed. We met people from all over. They were very friendly. The staff was excellent, and we had conversations with lots of people that had been on 5 cruises. Some had been on 15, some had been upwards of 30. And almost everyone we talked to commented that it was the best cruise they had ever been on, as far as the staff, how friendly and accommodating everyone was, how attentive they were. So that was awesome.
Yeah, it was friendly in the vibe. I mean, it's an older cruise, what we learned, and we actually wanted that. We didn't, we have kids, so we're not against kids, but we didn't want a party barge. And this was there was some families, I would say maybe 10, 15% of them had kids, but it was majority just couples, maybe people that retired. It wasn't like all blue hairs, but there was a contingent. It was a good mix, probably from, I'd say, 40s to 70 is probably the majority of it. But it was very friendly, and we're there sometimes in the evenings there would be more of a party vibe in some of the lounges. They have karaoke. You could find that if you wanted it, but for the most part, it was pretty relaxed and peaceful.
Nice, nice. I know with Princess that we've been on, we found that to be the same. It's not super heavy with party. It's more kind of laid back, relaxed, and you can find it if you want it, but
Yeah.
you have to actually look for it. It's not going to find you, I think. So
Right.
yeah, I agree with that. So let's talk about your itinerary. So you guys did Alaskan Cruise. How many ports did you guys hit?
3 ports that we actually left the ship.
And what were those?
It was Ketchikan, Juneau, and Skagway. We left in Vancouver and ended in Whittier, which is about an hour uh, from a little bit south of Anchorage. So we went north. So we would hit Ketchikan, then Juneau, then Skagway.
So when you got to Whittier, did you guys have to drive through that tunnel to get out of there?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Wasn't aware that it was there, but it was very cool. And I had looked up. I don't know that they said this. We did a kind of a mini excursion from Whittier to Anchorage on a little sprinter van with, like, I think it was 10 of us. It held 13 and there was 10, but thankfully there wasn't 13 because it gave us a little room. But it's almost a 2-mile tunnel. It said that I looked it up. It's the largest tunnel in North America, I believe.
Was
2 miles.
And it's only been recently that they've allowed cars through there. It was a train tunnel historically, and our guide had let us know about that, how they opened it up, and was it there was something else she told us about it, but I don't remember, but it was really interesting.
it's one way, right? So you have to wait,
Yes.
The
right?
red light.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, there were actually 4 lanes of red lights, and they would let a lane go and then stop it and let the other lane and go through all 4 and then start over again, and I think it runs every is it 15 or
30
45?
minutes.
Every 30.
30 minutes.
Wow.
Because when she picked us up, looking at time, she's like, "We're going to do a little small tour of Whittier because we got to wait for instead of sitting in a line." Like she said, it was divided up into 4 lines. Otherwise, it would be miles of, that way it'd be condensed with people waiting. And so we kind of went around the town of Whittier, which is very small. I think she said only 200 people live there.
Yes,
It's
and
small.
they all most of them live in the same building.
Mhm.
It's a high-rise building that they all live in there, and there was a really cool building that, she showed us, she called it the Ghost Building, and it was a government-owned building from World War II where they were gonna build, I think she said 6, and they completed 2 of them, but they were government buildings for soldiers and everybody, and it was gonna be its own town. Had everything in it, and so, I can't remember how long it's been sitting dormant,
Yeah, the
but
gist of it was that the government did it to keep an eye on Russia because they're so close to Russia there. But as technology advanced, there wasn't need for, they could do it from the sky and other places, and that's why it kind of came to a halt. Once they were building it, the advancement of technology meant that they didn't have to have somebody there; they could do it from the sky. So it just kind of stopped.
So what I love about this is that what you learn, what you glean just from going, right?
Mhm.
Going and experiencing new places and new things. Look at what all you've learned just
Yeah.
by going there. That's
Mhm.
amazing. I love that. So let's talk a little bit about your embarkation experience. I know we've chatted about that before, and so let's give the raw, honest truth about your embarkation experience.
It was a little confusing. We wish we had had more information about what that would be like. I think the day that we left, there were 4 cruises there waiting to put people on, and, where our Uber driver dropped us off was not necessarily the correct place, so we were kind of just walking through a parking garage trying to find our way, and somebody helped us get in the right direction, but then when we got there, there was there were just people getting in line. So we went to get in line and they were like, "Oh, have you checked your bags yet? Have you checked in?" And we were like, "No." And so they sent us somewhere else. There were people everywhere to guide us and tell us what to do, which was very helpful. But we, in hindsight, had wished we had more detail about what that
Right.
was going to look like, being first time cruisers, because there were quite a few lines we had to go through and it was the bigger process than we anticipated.
So was this one large building?
Yeah,
So
yes, and it probably didn't hit me till we were almost there, and I remember thinking, "I don't really know what we're supposed to do, but we'll figure it out." But it was one large building, and you could kinda, see, "Okay, this ship's here, I could go this way," but like Dana said, we're in the parking garage, found a security guard, told him what we wanted, as we went, so we were able to find the help, but I think, from a first time cruiser's perspective, it would've been nice to been like, "Hey, you're going to go in this building. There's going to be a lot going on." But even, hey, just look for somebody, which we figured out. But it could be a little daunting, if depending on how you're wired.
yeah,
But it
absolutely.
but it was, yeah, large building, almost like a parking garage. I would say pretty much with like maybe, I don't know, 10 stories maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's pretty large, but they
It
they were they were efficient once you got in there and got in the right place. I would say it almost seemed like every 75 feet. It's hard to determine, but there was someone in uniform waiting to
Hmm.
answer a question, so
Yeah.
that was helpful.
to tell you where to go, they asked you what cruise line you were with because it was 4 different cruise lines that were there, and I think we went upstairs and downstairs 2 or 3 times each getting
You got your steps in that day.
yeah,
You got
getting through
Yeah,
all of the
definitely.
lines.
and apparently someone did tell us that it wasn't normally like that. It was a little chaotic, so I don't know if normally four cruise lines aren't leaving at the same time, or maybe they're staggered on the leaving, where we're not sure. But we did hear that wasn't necessarily protocol.
Yeah, I've
It
never
was
cruised out of Vancouver, so typically what I've cruised out of, the most of the time your lines will have a different building, and you'll go to a different port number, and so it's a little bit different there where you've got the big large building, and then you go to the different places, so it's a
mhm.
little bit different there. So yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
So I'll just say this out there for any travel advisors out there listening. I was not Robbie and Dana's travel advisor, so don't come at me. It wasn't me. Um,
We can verify that.
but just to give you a little heads up, travel advisors, when you have first time cruisers, you want to give them as much information as you possibly can. And if you leave out any details, it can cause some confusion, and cause a little bit of a poor experience. And you don't really want that, because you want everyone's experience to be uh, uh, fantastic. You want it to go as smooth as possible. So just travel advisors out there, please make sure you know what port they're going to and give them all the information you possibly can.
I think, David, too, we had to go through security 2 different times at least and show our passport 2 or 3 different times. It's not a big deal, but being a first-time person, the heads up of that would have helped, just knowing, keep our passport out, don't put it back in your backpack, you're gonna have to pull it out again, that kinda thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to know that. So let's talk about your cabin. What style of cabin did you get? And tell me a little bit about it.
We had a balcony, as far as style, I believe, if that's what you're looking for on the style. It was balcony. It had a queen bed. So when you walked in, basically the to your right was the bathroom, and like in that little, as you turn right, the bathroom doors to the right, to the left was a closet area, and then there was also a shelf or cabinet that you opened up, had a safe in it, had some more storage, and then once you pass that, it was the main room, which had the bed. It had a dresser, I guess you would call it, like where Dana could get ready, with a mirror and whatnot, and then it went out onto the balcony. And there was two shelves kind of in the corner on the left side of the balcony doors, and it had a little refrigerator there as well.
Yeah.
So it was about, I think it was around 200 square feet, 220 square feet.
So you didn't have to sit down and get ready at the mirror or anything like Dana did.
No,
You didn't use that at all.
yeah, I don't have enough hair for that.
So did you think the room, being a first time cruiser, getting on a ship, I know sometimes when you go in those rooms, they're small, right? So what was your thought when this is your first time on a ship, you're going into your cabin. What was the first thing you thought?
I mean, I was pleased with it. I knew we were gonna be cramped looking at it ahead of time, and there were a few times, you just navigate your way around it. I could not have done that with kids, but for the 2 of us, and we knew we weren't gonna be spending a ton of time in there, it was perfect. If I could say anything could have been better, it was definitely the shower. As someone we talked to on the ship, they were like, "It's kind of like soap and spin."
Soap and
Um,
spin. Soap
so,
and spin.
and we've heard from people that have been on newer boats that, they've really improved on the bathrooms and things like that,
Yeah.
shower size, but it was perfect for what we needed. If we were gonna be in it more than we were, you know, maybe something a little bigger, I definitely wouldn't wanna do that without having a balcony.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Thinking through it, I couldn't have done it without a balcony. I don't know, haven't seen another room, but I'm imagining it just has a little porthole to look out of. I don't know that I could have done that for a week, but the balcony made it just that little where you could get fresh air and have a little room I could sit out there. And I mean, a decent sized balcony. It might have been 6 by 12, which is not large, but maybe 5 by 12. But it was enough to get some fresh air and to have a little more space.
Especially your itinerary too, and what all the beauty
Oh my
around.
goodness,
You
yeah.
wanted to be out there looking
Yeah,
at.
we would stay out there and just kinda didn't wanna go back inside in some of the areas because we were afraid we'd miss something.
Yeah.
And the sunsets were just unbelievable. So that was a cool thing with I guess they call it the land of the midnight sun.
Mm.
It would stay. They had 20 hours of sunlight, the area we were in, the
20 hours of sunlight.
proximity to I believe that's the North Pole there. Yes, North Pole, yeah, 20 hours.
And even what was darkness was more kind of like a twilight type thing.
Mhm.
It was never completely dark.
So it never really got dark, dark. It
No.
was
Mhm.
And so
that's wild.
yeah, it was very wild, and like you said, I mean, we didn't wanna come in thinking because the scenery was so gorgeous. I mean, I know I took over 300 pictures in 7 days just because there was always something to look at, and it would get a little windy, but we just put on our sweatshirts and sat out there a few times, put toboggans on. I loved sitting out there with a book
Mm.
because I could read, and then I would see something I wanna take a picture of and then take a picture, so
So how was the cleanliness of your cabin and your service? Did you guys do any room service or anything like that?
We only did the room service once, probably being new, we were just, trying to figure things out. But we did do breakfast one time, and we had heard this, so I was kind of expecting it. Somebody else had done it. Like you pick a time, and apparently they were like 30 minutes ahead of what you picked, and on cue. So I picked a certain time, and they were 20 to 30 minutes ahead of the window that I picked. So for what that's worth, but it was, it was everything. You filled out a sheet, and they gave us everything that we asked for. So that was the only room service per se. But of cleanliness, it was very clean because both of us are, we're not necessarily neat freaks, but like things a certain way and want it clean. And I was impressed. I remember thinking several times, just because I know this is odd, but when you're in the bathroom, you're looking around. I mean, all the nooks and crannies, everything was clean. I
Good.
mean,
Good.
there was, you didn't have a feeling. Sometimes you get in a hotel room and you're kind of like, it's clean, but kind of wondering,
Yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah.
this was clean. They were on top of it, and the gentleman that was kind of assigned to our area, they kept it clean, and we kind of figured out. And I was talking to Dana, she's like, "Yeah, she knew that, but like, I guess obviously with the medallions, they know when you leave your room,
They do. Yeah.
and so as soon as you're gone, when both of us were gone, we would come back, and the towels were changed, bed was made. They were there was no negative marks on the cleanliness or service.
What I think's really bad though is when you come home and you leave your room and you come back and it's not made up, right? What happened?
Dude, why didn't they follow us home?
Why is my bed not made up?
Yeah.
Why is
You spent 45 minutes going in and out of your room trying
Yeah.
to think you did it wrong.
Exactly.
Robbie, that's your job now.
Should've put your
No.
medallion back
Put your medallion back.
But yeah, they did an excellent job and it was clean and I kind of make a point when I'm somewhere, whether it's a hotel or whatever. I don't want to be a slob and I don't want somebody to have to come and clean up after me like it's my own home or whatever. So we did our best to, trash is in the trash can, sheets are kind of pulled up, but that kind of thing. I would wipe the water off the small little counter in the bathroom and stuff like that. But we'd come in and everything would be spotless. So
Well,
they
that's
did a
very good.
great job.
Very good. I know being on Princess, I felt the same. Just it's
Yeah.
for me, Princess is just a very top notch organization, and
They
I
are a
really enjoyed.
well-oiled
Yeah,
machine.
we don't have a comparison, but it was definitely well old machine, and from stuff I've heard or seen on the internet from some of the other ones, I won't mention names, but their princesses. There's a reason I think they have a reputation.
Yeah,
I saw that.
yeah, I agree. So let's talk a little bit about food. So there's many different options, and you've been a first time cruiser. I know that you had people in your ear and you had people talking to you saying, do this, do that. What did you guys decide to do about your dining options?
We did the plus package, is that right?
Mhm.
We did the plus package where we got 15 drinks a day, um, and we didn't do any extra dining. Now, we did take advantage of the dining room every night but one, I think, when we went, to choose to reserve our dining spaces, there were no spaces available, and so that kind of freaked us out because we kept hearing, "Make sure you reserve your dining, make sure you do this," and then there was nothing, and then Robbie called before we left and found out information that we didn't have to do that. We could just stand and,
Right.
come at that time. And every time we came, the very first time we came, there was a longer line. Um, but then they started saying, okay, who will eat with someone else? Can we get a party of six together? And so we would do that. And so the first night that we used the dining room, I think there was a party of six. It was two, couples each. But it was a nice dinner and we all talked and kinda got to know each other, and so it was
So were you at a
pleasant.
round table together?
We were at a round table
Yeah.
together, yes. And then I
Kind of
think
hibachi style, right? Like
yeah,
y'all kind
Yes.
of don't
Yeah.
know each other. And
right.
yeah.
And every other time after that, we got a two-seater somehow, and I think 3 of those 4 times, they took us up to the dining room up above us.
Oh yeah.
So it was nice.
Yeah, with the as far as like what she was saying, as far as choosing your dining times, that would be something too that I would recommend for folks if to that would be information to know because we all we were told was to reserve your dining and that was very important. So I got towards the end before we leave and I'm, sitting down to do it and it took me 30 minutes of realizing that and I thought we had missed the window and everything was booked up. So I started Googling then I felt better. I found some videos, and I called the next day, like Dana said. But basically, you were only going to choose 2 times if you wanted the same waiter
Mhm.
each night, and that's what we figured out. So, like she said, not trying to say the same things, but you could do a walk in the fancy dining room, I'll call it. And I think we never waited more than 3 minutes. I mean, like she said, there
Wow.
might be 20 people in line. The one time, I was like, man, this is going to suck. And then
You don't get that at restaurants here at home.
no,
Yeah.
immediately she was like, "Does anybody wanna share?" We threw our hands up, and then there you go. So, when we kind of adjusted our time, we realized, okay, the 5:30 and 7:30 is the main times when they switch, so we tried not to hit those, and it was less, but with us willing to share, we never waited, and that was a cool thing too, getting to meet people. I would say 80% of the people we sat with spoke. Some of them were just older, and they weren't rude, but they were just interested in eating and going
Yeah.
on. They weren't interested in conversation, but all the folks that we talked to, I mean, we made friends, that we would see again and, "Hey, how you doing?" And even met several couples that were from the area that my mom and sister live in Port St. Lucie, Florida, and one of the guys even offered for us to come stay with him when we were in town. I mean, very, very friendly.
I mean, the cruising crew out there. I'm telling you, there's so many awesome and nice people out there that you meet and talk to, and then you get in Facebook groups with them or other things. And there's so many great people out there. It really is.
Well, and what Robbie's talking about with that too, those weren't even couples that we were sharing a table with. They just had an adjacent table
Mm-hmm.
and would strike up conversations and things like that. But a tip we got in the last day or two of our trip, we didn't do it, but one of the couples that we sat next to when they took us up to the main dining room, the lady said that they weren't able to reserve either. So the first day they got on the ship, she went to the dining room and said, "Hey, there were no spots available. What do we do?" And they found a spot. And so they had their same one each day, same table, and they could just let them know, if they weren't going to be there that day. And they said the table we were sitting in or setting at had been a different couple each time.
Wow.
So that was a pretty good tip to know if you do wanna set it up and go at the same time every day and have the same wait staff and things like that, that when you get on the ship, ask and see if they can help you.
Yeah. Yeah. Go there on embarkation day and just go straight to the desk and ask. Yeah.
Mhm.
They'll be glad to help you. Absolutely.
Again, things that would have been nice to know, so
Exactly. So again, travel advisors out there, again, inform your clients. Inform your clients of every little detail. You can't be over detailed. So did you guys eat at the buffet?
Yes, I think we ate breakfast there every morning. We did figure out, like, as the trip progressed, we kinda got more familiar with the app and figured out ways to find things out, whether or just ask somebody. But the fancy dining rooms did have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but we had breakfast with the exception of the one time that we had room service, we had breakfast in the buffet, and, it was good. I mean, there's a lot of options, I mean, because it's everything from cereal, yogurt, fruit, omelets, every kind of breakfast thing, and they even had usually every morning would have like a rice and a meat, whether that would be
Mm,
chicken or beef. So a lot of times, I kind of got burnt out on the bacon and eggs, and I would get a rice and meat. I mean, I've traveled to different countries where that's kind of what they eat is rice and beans and meat. So I was used to that even for breakfast. So I like to eat, so I enjoyed that. But and I think we had dinner once or twice, might have been twice, for the buffets, lunch a couple times. We did have lunch, I think once at the sit down restaurant, but, the buffet was good. I think there was one time both of us just weren't interested in the theme, but as far as the quality of it, it was good. I mean, it was above like a old country buffet, or I'm not sure what people know what but something you'd go to in your hometown, it was above that.
yeah.
yeah, it
It
was quality
yeah,
food.
it was quality food.
And there was a lot of variety with it,
Mm,
that spoke to different cultures and things like that. It
Mm,
wasn't just American fare.
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, we were never hungry, just put it that way.
Yeah. I don't think you can go on a cruise ship and go hungry. If you do, it's a you problem, not the
Yeah.
not the
Yes,
ship's problem.
Italian night was the only night that we were a little hungry afterwards because we weren't loving Italian night, but
Yeah. But you could go get something else if you
yes,
wanted.
Yes, they had I think
yes.
it was an international cafe I went to several times. They would have little cakes and little sandwiches and coffees and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And
I
the
love
salty
International Cafe.
dog where we get
Yeah, that's right. The pizza, you could get burgers and fries, I think up until 10 p.m.
What'd you think about the pizza?
It was actually good. There was one of the flavors we didn't care for,
the
but,
marguerite was not what we
not a traditional
yeah,
marguerite.
but
Yeah.
there was a veggie pizza that didn't have it had a white sauce instead of a red sauce.
Mhm.
It was pretty good, and the pepperoni, we both
Yes.
burned our mouths on it. It was
Really?
so hot.
But it was good. It was the thin crust. It wasn't like a, frozen pizza. It was a good, you know, it was, I mean, I don't high end maybe pushing it, but it was a quality pizza.
I've had good pizza on Princess. I really
Mhm.
like their pizza. So I was just
Yes.
curious of what you thought about it.
Yes.
And we found the fries to be really good.
Yes. Yeah.
They were nice and crispy and always hot, so
The burger honestly was just a burger, but the fries were good. Pizza was good.
So let's talk about entertainment and activities. Did you guys go to any shows?
We went to a couple of comedy shows.
It was comedy and it's not acrobat. He did juggling.
Juggling.
He's the like world champion juggler. It was Ivan Pacell, I believe is the
Yeah,
gentleman's
Ivan
name. World champion like 7 times, and he does a comedy routine as he's doing it. So it was quite interesting. And we saw him twice. It was a different show. It wasn't a repeat, but the first show was better, and he actually would get out in the crowd, and it was pretty funny. I mean, it was some of the stuff he did was quite entertaining, but it was good.
We did that. We did bingo. I would say the one thing that we were frustrated with is the things that you had to pay for that they don't even when you're using the app and it tells you what's going on, they don't tell you ahead of time that it's not, "Yeah, hey, go play bingo and have fun for free."
Yeah.
You have to pay to play and things like that. So, I think that was the only thing we were really disappointed with, but we did that and we went to,
It was like the marriage.
Mar
It was like a dating game, but for married
Oh
couples.
yeah.
and we signed up, and think we were frustrated with that too, and it's silly stuff, your first world
Mhm.
problems, but, like, they told us that, it was gonna be a newlywed couple, a kinda middle of the road couple up to 20 years, and then one, 20 to 40 and beyond, and what they chose was a couple that'd been married a year, a couple that had been married 34 years, and a couple had been married 45.
So we
We're like
we had no middle of the road
yeah, they
there.
didn't
Yeah.
have really a middle of the road, but all 3 couples were from Michigan. They said they were picking at random, didn't believe that. I felt like there was,
So we said maybe there was a Wolverine alumni maybe
Yeah.
picking that day or
And we
something.
were probably bummed because we wanted to get chosen, but I think after we didn't get chosen and saw the show, we were probably glad we didn't
Flavor
get
of
chosen.
Yeah,
the
there were a few questions I think I would've been really embarrassed
Yeah.
to answer.
Face would have been totally red.
Yes.
Like
But it was very entertaining to
But
listen to.
there was a lot of entertainment. Honestly, we were so relaxed. I had to think about it like, why am I tired? I wasn't tired, I was relaxed. That we had planned to go to more shows, but by the time it came, we were just like, hey, we're just gonna chill in the room.
Yeah.
There was some we definitely wanted to go to, but it was nonstop entertainment if you wanted to go nonstop.
It's always something I think that just is going on. There's something going on. Was it hard to find? Like if there was something that you wanted to do, was it hard to find that, or was it easy to find?
It was easy to
With
find.
the app, it was easy to find because it would tell you, and they also put, I believe it's called a patiere. I'm going to pronounce it wrong. Patty. They would put a paper on your bed
Yeah.
they would slide every morning. It would tell you, but also it wasn't. It didn't. I can't think of the word you call that, but it didn't have everything on it. So you would go to the app, and sometimes it have updated. But when you clicked on it, it would tell you where it was at on the ship, and you could also hit something. It would give you directions of how to get there.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was easy to find everything, especially that size ship. I think by the third or fourth day, you kind of had it, you know, memorized,
That's good.
where everything was.
That's good. So let's talk about your ports. Was any port that stuck out to you more than the other?
Um, I liked all of them. All of them had different things. Ketchikan was cool because it was the salmon, where the salmon come and spawn and go upstream, and so that was a beautiful area, and it was just kind of had an old time feel to it. Juneau, that was a lot of shops and selling a lot of jewelry and things like
More
that.
touristy?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
more touristy, but, in Juneau, we took an excursion where we, went to their airport, their international airport, and took a helicopter ride onto the Abair Glacier and did a dog sled ride.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah,
that's a
that was a once in a lifetime thing. We had kind of researched that prior, and then I waffled back and forth on wanting to spend the money because it was about $700 a person. So for us, that was a little high considering what we had already spent on the trip. And anyway, I finally decided to do it once the weather was going to be as beautiful as I saw it was going to be, and I'm very glad we did. It was a once in a lifetime thing to have that view and to be, do the dog sledding, be on a glacier. We were joking that we crossed off like 6 things on our bucket list on that one thing
One
in Juneau.
cruise, yeah. And then, with Skagway, it was felt kinda like an old West type
Mhm.
feel. That's where near where the gold rush started and different things, and we learned about a lot of that, and we took a train ride 3,000 feet up. But then when you get in town, you're walking on what's like a wooden boardwalks through town and different things, so it was just kinda neat to have that feel of
Mm.
maybe what it was like to walk through the Wild
The
West
Wild West.
on a
It makes me want.
boardwalk.
It makes me want to think I want to have my 6 shooter.
Yes, yes. Yeah, they were, similar to Herb. They were all very neat, in the history, like you spoke of earlier. Finding the history out about the Ketchikan and kind of what they did. Thinking about their life, because Alaska is a beautiful area, but it's also a very rough. Is not the way. It can be daunting, I guess, to live there.
Mhm.
And we had read some things, and I'll mess up. The lady, it was talking about how one minute it's a beauty, and the next minute it's like a witch, because of the weather and just the change. We were there in the summer. I can imagine being there when the sun doesn't shine.
Yes.
So, but it was very cool to learn. I like history, so it was very interesting about the history. Like she said, in Skagway, and we did the train thing, and that whole thing the whole area was built just because of the gold rush back in the early 1900s.
The gold rush and then also World War II again tied
Mm.
into
Hmm.
that. So we both like history
Yes, but
and
but we enjoyed it. A lot of shops. I mean, you're gonna spend money if you have any kind of problem of saying no. You're gonna, it's t-shirts. I mean, it's
Right.
touristy stuff, but you can find some neat little things. But it was enjoyable to get off the ship. I wouldn't have want to stayed on the ship for 7 days. I mean, I liked being able to get off
Oh yeah.
and go check out places and be able to say, hey, I've been here, I've been there, and it actually makes us probably want to go back, and if we do it again in that same area, spend more time or maybe do different excursions.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I like what you said about the ship because the way Cindy put it is like you get on board, you unpack and you're in your hotel room, but then your hotel room moves to the different locations where you
Mhm.
can get off and go
mhm.
experience something new.
Yes.
That's one of the things that I really like about cruising is
Yes,
that.
it's very
Yes.
nice.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is typical because we had 2 days of sailing to get to our first because we had embarkation,
Mm.
it's like half a day of sailing because we didn't leave till 4,
Mhm.
but then we have another full day of sailing, and on the 3rd day, we get to, catch a
Catch a
can,
can.
and then our last 2 days were sailing, and I'm not sure that some of the Caribbean cruises and things like that, I'm thinking maybe not as much sailing.
We did the same. It was very similar.
Okay,
We did a Western Caribbean, and it was you embark the day you embark, you had a sail day, then you had 3 back-to-back days of ports, and then
okay,
2 days of sail
Okay.
again. Now, different itineraries are different, and
Yeah.
in different cruise lines, different itineraries can vary,
Yeah.
and,
okay.
If I could like hand select one, that would be the only thing, me personally, because it was enjoyable, but I would have liked to broken up the ports. And I get it, it's
yeah,
logistics. But if there was one where you could sail, maybe stop, then sail again, because we were worn
you're
out
exhausted.
after,
Yeah,
you know.
it was like I was looking at my Fitbit every day, and there were it was 14 to 17,000 steps every day.
And you weren't trying. You were just
No,
going.
it was just too but we also did comment, like all the ports kind of felt like we were in Pigeon Forge or
Mhm.
Gatlinburg with all the
Mhm.
stores and stuff like that, which all of them, I would think on any cruise line you go through, the ports are gonna be like that because that's the revenue for that area.
Mhm.
But, finding the different excursions makes it worthwhile.
So did you guys book these excursions? I know you said you did the one where you flew up and did the dog sled. Did you book excursions prior to going, or did you do it when you got on the ship? Or when did you get your excursion? When did you book those?
We did it on the ship. Like, I had done more research on that, and there's different schools of thought. I think from what little bit I researched on that, but we waited till we got there. Some of that was because with Alaska being the weather the way it is, the more research I did, a lot of the stuff gets canceled. So our thought was we'll just wait. Once I realized that you could, I think I had the FOMO at one point, a fear of missing out, because
Hmm.
they're like, oh, you need to book your excursions. Which in hindsight, I feel like they just want you to spend money. Which I get it; it's all about money to an extent. But there was nothing, I don't think, that was sold out that we wanted to do.
Yeah, we've
I
done it
think
both ways. Mm.
yeah, and I think the only thing that we booked through Princess while we were on the ship was the
The
train
train
ride,
ride.
and in all the excursion we did to the glacier, the excursion we did in, Whittier to Anchorage, we did it on a much smaller scale than we would have done, I think, if we had booked it through Princess. Like you said, there were 10 people in our Sprinter van. There was 6 of us that went on the helicopter up to the glacier, and we enjoyed the low density,
Yeah,
you
smaller
know.
crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that excursion was booked through our travel agent on leaving. That was an option for us,
Okay.
just for clarification, the Whittier, because you can just get off the ship and go straight to the airport. A lot of people, I think we joked we're the only people on the ship that didn't do the land portion of the cruise.
It
The
felt
Oh,
that way.
Denali, everyone we spoke to was asking, and we were the only person that said no. I think we're the only person that had kids to get back to,
yeah.
but that's something we would like to go back and do the train through Denali.
Hmm.
But so the little excursion basically allowed us some scenery from Whittier to Anchorage, to go up the coast, and we went to a wildlife conservation, went to like a ski lodge, rode a tram, went to a little restaurant. I actually can't see it, but I'm wearing Girdwood Brewery, just kind of like a little hip brewery, and then had lunch and had a beer, and just enjoyed the weather. So that way, it kind of extended the trip a little bit, before we had to get back to reality.
Yeah, that's really good. Those last days when you have to fly out late. Let's talk about debarkation. You guys, you got off in Whittier, did your excursion. How was the process getting off the ship?
It was easier. They had given us some paperwork the night before, a couple nights before, for you to fill out, depending on what you were doing when you left. I think it's how they broke up the times and the.
Um, the only thing with when it was time to leave, like, they were making announcements for different groups, and I guess because we were such a smaller group and maybe not a group leaving with Princess for the land tour, they never announced our group, and so when we went to try to see where to go, n even the people on the cruise didn't know when we were supposed to leave, and they finally found somebody, and they were like, "Yeah, y'all were already supposed to be gone," and we're like, "Nobody called for our group,"
You're
and
like, extra time on the ship.
Yeah.
All
yeah.
right.
We
So
we had a time slot though, so we knew. I mean,
Yeah.
they gave. Do
yeah.
I need to start it over? But yeah, they had given us paperwork. So it told us the only thing that I say kind of sucked is we had to be off at 6:45 in the morning,
That always sucks.
because
Debarkation
we
day
had to
sucks.
meet
regardless.
our liaison. I'll call it 8:30. So we had to choose a time slot to where we wouldn't miss that. So that was the only things. But the buffet was open early that morning for that reason.
Mm.
So we did get up. But like Dana was saying, they didn't, because our group, I guess, was so small. They didn't announce it. There was a little confusion getting off, but it was actually much easier because it was solely princesses. When you disembarked, there was only one way to go out. It was just a matter of when do you go out. But we had color coded tags
Yes.
on our luggage, and we went and sat in this little area. The gentleman in there, the questions that we had, there was an older gentleman I asked, gave us all the answers and kind of put us at ease. But that was probably the easiest part, short of not being able to hear, so, but we knew, okay, 6:45 we're supposed to go, so it wasn't like we were way off. It just was a little fuzzy there, but it was actually pretty easy.
Good. Good. So much smoother debarkation than embarkation. It
Yes,
sounds
Yes.
like.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
and the only reason it wasn't is because when they didn't announce our group, it didn't tell us where to go when we left the
Yeah.
ship, and so trying to figure out where we were supposed to go.
And for whatever reason, the two little areas you left, the people that worked for Princess, when we would ask them, they would go ask somebody else. So it was like whatever confusion. But they finally found the person that knew, and they were like, "Yes, you guys can go ahead and get off the ship." That's the only thing it amounted to, was just us after the fact realizing okay, now you can get off the ship, so you're with your people per se
Yeah.
versus in a group of 300 people that are going to this bus where we were going to sit in chairs and wait for our person to come into the terminal.
Good. Good. So, final verdict. This was your first cruise. First question I have: would you cruise again?
Yeah, I'll go. Oh, yes, most
Yes.
definitely. I didn't come away like, hey, I just can't wait to get back on a cruise ship, but definitely want to do it again. That's a fair answer. But yes, I would do it again, most definitely. And I think it opened up my eyes to, like I said, because I'm 49, never cruised before. Have traveled some. I'm not a world traveler. I've been on mission trips, been out of the United States, but the realization that you can travel on a ship and hit a lot of places in an easy manner, like you spoke of, with leaving your suitcase on the ship. So I thought that was a pretty cool realization.
You're good. Yes, Dana.
Yes, I would
Yes.
do it again. I do have to Robbie and I talked about it because I'm a little like, I don't know if it's Southern or what it is about it, but my biggest pet peeves is people don't wanna wait. You get up to the buffet and people are just walking right in front of you. But my biggest thing is the elevator etiquette. I
Yes.
was like, "Oh my gosh, you let people off the elevator before you start getting on."
It's pretty common sense, isn't it? You can't
Yes,
get in here till we get out of here.
yes, it should be, but at one point, I even said, "Excuse me, will you let us off first, please?" And they were like, "Oh, okay." And then they stopped getting on. It's like, okay.
I've got a
So
whole thing about people being not self-aware, and not just on cruise ships, just
Mhm.
anywhere, just not self-aware at all. And I'll
mm,
tell you, today we saw it. Just this, I know this is a side off, but today we saw it in a parking lot. This woman just on her phone, walking right in the middle of the road in the parking lot, and I'm like, you just aren't self-aware at all. You're just not paying attention to anybody. Anyway, that's a different topic. But would you sell? Would you go back on Princess Cruise Line?
absolutely.
Yes, most definitely.
Awesome,
Yes, most
very good.
definitely.
And final rating, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. What would you rate this trip with Princess Cruise to Alaska?
I would say I could probably give them an 8 pretty confidently. It wasn't a 10 would be perfection, and it was nothing that they did wrong. Some of that may be expectations, but I would say a solid 8 for a first time. With maybe expectations that weren't fair or whatnot. Because I have no idea what to expect. But it was way more. It was more than I expected. It was good, so I would say an 8. I would say 8 based on just a few small things here and there. We didn't touch on it much, but real quick, like they be prepared to spend more money than you think you're going to, or go in with we've learned we've got to go in with a game face on as far as put our foot down if we're not going to spend extra.
That goes into my next question is
Sorry.
what tips would you give to future cruisers, and especially those who have never cruised before? You guys have given a lot of great tips already, but that one right there is a big one.
Hmm.
Do expect that there's going to be things that you're going to look, you're going to get hit with and go, oh, yeah, I do want to do that, or I there's going to be opportunities for you to spend more money. Let's just put it that way. So, Dana, 1 to 10, what was yours, and what tip would you give?
9. I'd give it a 9. Um, and honestly, it this seems kinda strange to me. David, you know me, I'm more of an introvert, um, especially, like, being around crowds and stuff like that. I have to have quiet time and not noise and things like that. And I really didn't go on the cruise wanting to meet people and different things like that. I just wanted Robbie and me and Robbie to have a good time, enjoy some time together, and celebrate 20 years and all of that. But the fact that at most of the meals we talked to the people around us was really nice, and we actually got to know some of the people that worked on the ship
Hmm.
because the first day there we made some purchases in one of their shops, and we got to know the staff there, and we really felt like when we left that they genuinely liked us and we genuinely liked them, and we would make a point to see them, every couple of days or whatever. And one of the guys that we met, Eric, he designs his own jewelry line, and we knew him on a first name basis and bought several things from him. And he said, "I almost left a note in your cabin for you the other day," because we had joked. Roy was like, "Dana, you're cut off." And I was like, "You mean I can't see my supplier anymore?" And he was like, "No, you cannot see." And so I was like, "Eric, I love you, but I can't come back and see you anymore." And so he almost slipped us a note into our cabin and then ended up not doing it and stuff like that. But having that relationship with some people that worked on the ship,
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason, it just enriched our time there.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But yeah, like it was our 20th anniversary cruise. I don't know if we ever said that. So we kind of, I don't know if it was a mistake, but we made I'll say mistake which we were fine with it. We could have said no, but we gave each other a gift, jewelry. I got a watch and she got some earrings and I think a couple other things. But
had 2 sets of earrings and a ring.
yeah, but they are trying to sell things, and they were good people. We did enjoy them. You just have to be prepared that they're trying to make money too.
It is a business.
Like she spoke about the bingo thing. I get it. We just thought, hey, we want to have fun. You had to buy the cards. But the spa was the other thing. We got a massage and it was great, but we weren't expecting the hard push for they wanted to sell products and they wanted to, we just if you go your first time, just go knowing that you're gonna have to, if you have trouble saying no, you're gonna have to read some books on how to do that, or just prepare yourself because they're going to want to sell you on other things. We enjoyed the spa, but we wish they could have toned it down a little bit on pushing, because the cruise wasn't cheap. It was worth what we paid. I will say that, but we just weren't necessarily wanting to spend. At the end of the day, we could have said no, but you just got to just be prepared to that they're trying to sell more things than you want to buy.
Yeah, that's some really good advice.
And maybe we're naive not to realize that it was going to be that. But again, I would say for travel agents working with people, that's good information to give ahead of time. They're always going to try to upsell you. Be prepared to, have your game face on to say no or decide that you want to do it. And to let you know ahead of time that not everything on the ship is free as far as entertainment.
What I hear is you guys had a great time. You enjoyed your first cruise, loved Alaska, and you gave a lot of great tips that I think is going to be very valuable for anybody who listens. So I want to thank you guys for coming on. I really appreciate it. And I'm so happy that you got to experience this, and I'm so happy that you enjoyed it too, because we have been longtime friends, and I'm hoping that leads to us going together to do something like this. So, guys, thank you guys so much for listening. And if you like what you heard, if you have any comments, please leave them below. Please subscribe to the channel, either on Spotify, Amazon Music, or YouTube. We would love to hear from you. And please let us know what you thought of the episode. We'd really enjoy that. Again, this is Travel by David. With your host, David. Have a great day.